What's up, people? It's me, Pastor Nathan. I'm a ordained pastor in the United Church of Christ. I just climbed three sets of stairs. Is this microphone working? Hello? Chickadee boop bop. It's kind of quiet. Tell me what's up. Tell me what's up, people. All right, I finally installed some air conditioning up here in the. Hang on, I'm gonna turn that off. Just a second. I put an air conditioner in the cupola, so it's like a meat freezer up here now. So I'm super happy about that. That's freaking on. It's tight. It's on fleek, I think is what the kids say. So I'm going to be talking to you for the next half an hour. If you have any questions for me, just put them in the comment section down below, and we'll talk. Today was a good day. Got some work done. Spent some time with the kids. Right now, my life is a mix of either being at work or 100% full-time childcare. So it's a real challenge. There's a lot going on in the world. A couple of horrible things happened in the world. There was an African-American gentleman that was threatened with a police execution in Central Park, and then in Minneapolis, there was a cop that murdered an innocent dude just because he could. I'm glad to see that those 4 police officers were fired. Some of you know that I serve on the Police Oversight Commission here in Kalamazoo. I'm the vice chair of the Citizens Police Relations Board. Doesn't really have teeth, but we do our best, and a lot of times we review footage like that to see how we can prevent those sorts of things from happening in Kalamazoo. And other than that, I'm living my best possible life in the best possible world. I had a billion ideas about what to talk about with you guys, but they've all completely left my head. So I'm open. I'm here. It's a beautiful, wet, rainy day in Kalamazoo. We've had 2 days of very hot heat, and the rain is going to help the garden grow. That's what happens. Rain falls like God's judgment on the good and the evil alike. I want to write a book, but I have all of this stuff in the back of my head. I've been watching this movie. My daughter she's 4 years old, so she fixates on a movie and then watches it over and over again. And lately, the movie that she wants to watch with me is Onward by Disney. I'm probably going to get my YouTube video taken down for using those words. But it's about a dorky, scrawny high school kid who has a totally just doofy, doughy older brother who's into Dungeons and Dragons, and a dead dad, and a strong mom, and they have a chance to bring his dad back. And it's like a very intimate portrait into a part of my own life, because I was that younger son with that totally dorky older brother. And let me turn this off. Anyway, the movie makes me cry. And I don't cry at movies. I can count on one hand the number of times I've cried at a movie. But every time I watch Onward, there's so many intersections in that movie with my own personal life that it just slays me. And I have to explain to JoJo every time. Like, she's like, "Why are you crying?" And I'm like, "Well, it's just a good movie. Sometimes people cry at good movies." Anyway, so if you're like me, and you've seen that movie, it makes you cry. I get it. It's hard to watch for some of us. Been doing the whole keto diet, not eating sugar, carbs, food. Basically, I'm just eating animals. This is horrible. It's like the worst diet in the world, but it's extremely effective. And it will help me consume a lot of the meat that's in our house. We're trying to figure out a way to get worship going again. And it's going to be very small when it begins, maybe 20 people. Our church was built to seat 450, and we're trying to figure out how to make it seat 20 to 30 people. without seeming weird, and there's just no way to do it. They're telling us that 30 to 40% of the churches in America will close as a result of this. So, I mean, that's pretty huge. I mean, what if they told you that 30 to 40% of the schools in America would close? So it's a big deal in the church. We're all freaking out and trying to figure out how to deal with it and be leaders in a time of pandemic. And a lot of people in my normal life have started following me on Twitter, which is kind of a shitty thing to happen, because Twitter is where I go to yell at people. And a lot of times, because it does say on my Twitter handle that I am a church pastor, but it doesn't say anything about where I pastor. People oftentimes, when I tell them something on Twitter, like I think you have brain damage, or like maybe your parents dropped you when you were a baby or something like that, they immediately come back and say, "You're a pastor. How can you say something like that?" And my stock answer has always been, I am a pastor, but I'm not your pastor. And for some reason, people think that church pastors are expected to be like mice, like nice little, like no opinions, and that our patriotism is supposed to be thin, like soup with too much water. And that's bullshit. There's a certain kind of pastor who wants everybody to love them. My friend Barrett he says all the time, well, he said to me anyway, that when he came to his church and they were angry because he was calling sin, he said to them, "I'm your pastor. I'm not your mascot." And I think that for a certain kind of American, they don't want a pastor. They want a mascot. They just want somebody to be like their automatic friend. And that's not what we're called to do. We're called to both comfort people when they're in trouble, but also to tell the truth. Now, at the one end of the comfort spectrum, you've got chaplains. Chaplaincy is a big deal. It's an important thing. We've got to have it. A chaplain's job is to be able to provide non-anxious support, I think, in any situation in life, regardless of your faith, regardless of what's going on. And that I'm lousy at that. And on the other side, you've got prophets. Prophets tell the truth. No matter what, a prophet will always tell the truth, never dissemble, never lie, but also never like fail to reveal the full truth. So prophets get killed. Like prophets, we know that. Like what they do to Martin King, they shot him, right? He was crucified in Memphis. Jeremiah, they threw him down a well. Prophets get murdered. Pastors are supposed to be like halfway between chaplains and prophets. We're supposed to be able to comfort people where they're at and also tell the truth when we have to. And for some reason, people like to push pastors over, especially in America, over onto that chaplain side. And I'm not a chaplain. And frankly, also, I can't be my job 100% of the time. Hi, Mom. Hi, Rachel. I have to be able to be an American person who's in the world and who is allergic to stupidity, and who, when I see something stupid happening, I'm compelled to say, that's stupid. That's some stupid shit. You are promulgating into the universe bad thinking and idiocy. In the same way that, like, maybe a doctor, when they see somebody not wearing a mask in the grocery store, might say, "Hey, wear a mask." So anyway, that happens to me a lot on social media. And if I've ever insulted you on social media, or told you that you were dumb or wrong for what you think, it's because you deserved it, and you should feel bad. I'm just kidding. I don't know. But no, I preached about this last Sunday. We can't all be in what's it called in Buddhism when you finally achieve satori? I had a teacher in my undergraduate program at Western when I was studying comparative religion, and she was a genius. And she said, satori, hi Dad, I see you, Martin. She said that she'd studied with Buddhist scholars from around the world, and they meditate and they focus on enlightenment, and some of them achieve it, but nobody is walking around in satori, in enlightenment all the time. Anybody who says they are is a bullshitter, and you shouldn't believe them. And the same is true with pastors. Church pastors, they spend 40, 50, 60 hours a week studying the way of Jesus and in working with other people to try to bring them into that path. But if pastors, if I'm in the Jesus way, if I'm in the Spirit for 5 hours a week or 10 hours a week, that's good. That's a big deal. The rest of the time, I'm full of the same garbage, nonsense, and bullshit that the rest of you are. I'm angry. I'm frustrated. I use social media as a way to vent at people who I think are hurting those I love. It is what it is. And so I guess all I'm saying is, like, if you're like me and you're allergic to stupidity, just be patient with yourself. And when people say to you, oh, we'll never get through this crisis if we don't stop being divided, or we have to be a solidarity, or you have to show compassion for people who refuse to wear masks and who spit on people and cough on people at Walmart. You know what? You don't. I'm giving you permission to be angry. You are a human being. You're an animal. You are a creature. You're beloved by God, but there is zero expectation that you're going to behave like Jesus Christ 100% of the time. I'm lucky if I can pull it off 10% of the time. So Dad asks, why is everything so different? It is. It's super different. I'm getting a much smaller audience. You know, it's just the way it is. Facebook, for whatever reason, has decided that my church's Facebook account shouldn't be allowed to broadcast live from my computer. I wrote Facebook a long, detailed letter about this, and I don't think they're going to get back to me. I uninstalled and reinstalled my browser. I'm using the browser that Facebook recommends. I'm doing my very best. I see a pile up of notifications here, and yeah, I'm doing my best. But I think that we are probably going to be switching to this YouTube Live thing as much as we can, because YouTube has been really, honestly, responsive and friendly to us. YouTube has been working hard for churches, and that's crazy. But you know, I know they're all evil, right? Facebook is owned by Mark Zuckerberg, who, as far as I can tell, is some kind of android. I don't know what he is. And YouTube apparently is owned by a collective of self-conscious robots. So we're going to be using YouTube for the time being and for the near future. I'm also sorry about the squeaky chair. I realize you can hear that. It's annoying to me too. We're going to be fixing that as well. So my spouse has been doing an amazing job painting the rest of the cupola to kind of try to turn it into an office space that we both can use. And yeah, it's where we're at. So what's going on with you guys? Do you have any questions about the future of the church, communion, baptism, the sacraments? What's it going to look like when America, in order to go to a church in America, you have to go to a big city? That's what happens for Muslims and a lot of Jewish people today. They don't have a little church in their town or their neighborhood. They have to drive into a big city in order to go to church. We are looking at that kind of a future for the church. One thing I like to remind people is that Americans don't actually go to church. They kind of just say they do. In 2014, the Pew Research Foundation did a survey, and they asked how many Americans are Christians. And I believe it was 72% of Americans still identify as Christians. And then the second question was, how many Americans attended a church, actually physically went to a church in the last 12 months? And the answer is 21%. So 3/4 of the people who say they're Christians actually go to church. Now, I don't know the answer about how many people affiliate with the church. A lot of people are affiliated with my church, but I don't know. Yeah, I think that Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo will absolutely be able to support churches. I don't think that we're going to have to worry about that. And in our tradition, a lot of us already drive downtown because we go to big steeple, what we call big steeple churches, churches like Park and FCC are big steeple churches. I'm worried more about your little Ada Bible church, your little Alto church. Those churches are important. They do outreach, they give money, they give clothes, they do diaper drives, they do a ton of stuff to help people. It is. What do I think of the outdoor services? Oh my God, you guys! I have a story. All right, so I support the outdoor services. I think that's a great idea. I think that's a fantastic way. In fact, Martin, Jesus had a huge outdoor service at the feeding of the 5,000. Right. I mean, when you go to Israel and you go on Israel Palestine, you go on these trips and you see where Jesus actually ministered. You see these huge kind of shallow hills that he would preach from and talk to people. And I think that's great. If we can sustain that, that would be good. I saw in Denmark, and IKEA made their parking lot available for Muslims who wanted to celebrate Eid, the end of Ramadan. And the parking lot was useful because they could physically and socially distance but still pray together. So I think that's going to be a huge thing. We may be looking at a revival of camp services and that sort of thing. But in terms of in terms of the outdoor services, I think that's a good thing. But I worry about the little churches. I've served a lot of little churches, and they provide a ton of good to the community. America doesn't have a good social safety net. If you're poor in America, you're screwed. There's just very little help for you out there. Welfare is a joke in this country, if you can get it. Churches provide a ton of support for that, and a lot of that, especially in the rural areas, comes from those little churches. And even though they may have pathologically toxic theologies and they may preach really nasty stuff, a diaper is a diaper. And when a church has a diaper drive, it helps everybody who needs diapers. So I think that's going to be part of it, you know? Worship in the car, you know, it's okay. I was trained for the live worship. When we were in seminary, so many of my friends were talking about digital worship and online worship. I just thought that's such bullshit because my whole career has been a process of cultivating this ability to stand in front of live human beings and actually get them to view each other as live human beings. And in EMT school, one of our teachers, he told us over and over again, some of us would have an aversion to using scissors. So when you're at EMT and you arrive on the scene and somebody's bleeding, you cut their clothes off. You cut their pants off. You cut their shirt off. You don't try to undress them or whatever. You use your surgical shears to cut the clothing off. And he would say, you're going to feel weird doing this, but medicine is practiced on the body. In other words, access to the physical body is what makes emergency medicine possible. And I would always say that in my mind, medicine is practiced on the body when I would go into church. And that means that, yeah, sometimes we do stuff. We hug each other. We eat bread together. We drink out of a cup. We pass the kiss of peace or the peace of Christ or however we do it. It means that I stand up physically in front of some physical humans. And it means that my recorded sermons and my written sermons are just not the thing. You have to be there in person, your butt in a pew for it to be church. And that is never going to happen again the way it did. It just isn't. So we I have to do a whole shift, a whole paradigm shift. And I've gotten a lot of really positive feedback about my sermon videos, and I'm grateful for that. But it's really hard for me to watch them because it's just not what I spent my formative years preparing to do. So whatever, I got to get over myself. I got my own shit to deal with, and I have to do it. So yeah, it is live with everyone in their cars, and it is. It's all technically live, and it's bullshit for me to say that everybody should have to physically be there, because it's never been the case. It's always been the case that people have listened to my sermons on the website and listened to church on the website, and listened to recordings and things like that. But it wasn't what I signed up for, and I still think that there's a difference between watching a play or an opera or a musical live and watching it on a screen. And it's just, and I may be a conservative about this, but it's just going to take a long time for me to shake that, So I appreciate everything you guys are saying. I'm going to do my absolute damnedest to push our message out there. Now, the really important thing is this. Our denomination, the United Church of Christ, has a very special and very important message to put out there. And that's that Jesus really is on your team, even though all of those other Christians said that Jesus is not on your team. So it's critically important that the United Church of Christ continues to promulgate its message into the world. There's a universe of churches out there that are saying that gay people are going to hell, or that divorce is a sin, or that unwed mothers are bad. All their weird, garbage that they put out there. All of the things that the fundamentalists and the charismatic evangelical churches put out there into the water. And there has to be a testimony and a witness for him, for Jesus, for the Jesus that you and I know, who says those guys are full of it. You're not going to hell. You are made the way that God created you, and you're deeply loved by God. And my fear is that I'm thinking specifically about Dan's church in Hudsonville. In towns like Hudsonville, Michigan, where there's just one open and affirming church, we can't lose those churches, because if and when we lose those churches, we lose the kids in those towns. We lose those children who are going to the youth group thing at Young Life or Campus Crusade for Christ, or whatever nonsense they're getting mixed up in. Those kids will kill themselves if they believe that Jesus hates them. And so we have to exist. And I know we'll exist in the cities. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the kids in Hudsonville, Michigan, who didn't choose to be gay, and they didn't choose to be born in Hudsonville, Michigan. They need a voice like Dan, who's a pastor out there. And so I don't know how to, because we're Congregationalists. We are so focused on our one church. So we got to find a way to save those churches, bolster them. They don't need saving. They don't need us. They have Jesus. We have a savior. It is Jesus. But my God, we can't lose those churches. We lose those churches. We lose those towns. We lose those towns. We lose those gay kids who are being raised in those towns, who have absolutely nowhere to go. So, that's the thing. A lot of times those churches are where they're having their PFLAG meetings. It's where they're having their what's the solidarity, the gay, straight solidarity. I don't know. I'm probably speaking an ancient language at this point. But anyway, that's my biggest fear. That's my biggest concern. And we're going to deal with it because we have to, because we are Jesus's disciples, and we've dealt with everything we've been dealt with in the past. But no, I think that churches like mine and Park we're gonna be okay. You know, I mean, shit. My church went through the Spanish flu. My church went through the Civil War. So did Park. We lost 12 young men to the Civil War. I mean, their funerals were held at our church, and 14,000 Michigan Wolverines died under hostile Southern skies. This is making me think of the woman in Central Park who, the man who she tried to get the police to come and kill has the same last name as she does. And she's white and he's black. And the reason that they have the same last name is most likely because her family owned his family. Now, she was some kind of financial person, and he's a researcher, a scientist. He is an engineer and a brilliant man and a bird watcher. And it makes me so angry that we could lose 14,000 brave Michigan citizens to the Civil War, and I still see people flying a Confederate flag in Michigan. When we lost 14,000 Michigan soldiers, when they died in the South, we were barely a state, and we needed them. And they were fighting to free Americans who were being forced, who were slaves. They were fighting to free American slaves who were being forced to work for free in the South. And it makes me really angry. I don't know. Listen, guys, it's really hard to be patient with stupid people and people who are trying to hurt you, people who think that this is a conspiracy or something. You know what they thought was a conspiracy? Was seatbelts. So 1983 was the year that seatbelt laws started to go into effect. That was the year I was born, by the way. And a lot of Americans, not a lot, 10% thought it was a conspiracy. I'm for real. Look this up. Ralph Nader wrote a freaking book about it. But anyway, they thought it was a conspiracy. They would never wear their seatbelts. And they would cut the seatbelts out of their car, or they would refuse to wear them. And I was even taught as a small child, I remember hearing, you're in greater danger if you wear your seatbelt, because if you get in an accident, you want to be thrown free from the vehicle through the windshield. That way you're safe. Bullshit. Seatbelts, we had a huge fight over seatbelts. There was a fight in the 70s over shoes, shirt service. There was a fight back during the Spanish flu over face masks. Every single time we try to do something as a nation to take care of each other, there's a big, dumb fight. And it's a lot of whiny, entitled people who refuse to understand the balance between freedom and responsibility. They believe that freedom costs nothing, that freedom should just be a given. The white woman in the park with her dog off leash, she believed that the rules don't apply to her, that she has freedom and that freedom doesn't bear responsibility. These people are cowards. They're the last ones who would ever pick up arms to defend freedom. People who understand that freedom comes with responsibility are ready to die for their freedom. These people are cowards. They won't even put on a mask to defend their freedom. I mean, can you think of a less I mean, could you think of a lesser sacrifice than putting on a piece of paper for 10 minutes to go to buy groceries? I mean, it's the smallest sacrifice compared to what we just went through on Memorial Day. The sacrifice that we ask of people who actually defend freedom, right? And so, but what I'm trying to say here is that these people have always existed. And through every single time we've had to deal with an epidemic, these people have existed. And every single time, the will of the American people has been stronger than the petty selfishness of the individualists, the isolationists, the ones who care only about themselves and who refuse to see anything bigger than that. So that's all I'm going to say. All I want to say is that we're going to get through this. It's going to get better. You will see it. The death toll, I'm afraid, is probably going to get worse. But America will get stronger. We will. I firmly believe it. All right. I got to get out of here. I don't like this new format any more than you guys do. But it's until I can get Facebook to recognize my Facebook mandated browser, this is the best I can do. So I love you guys. I love you. Take care of yourselves. Please take care of yourselves. I'm the one that has to do the funerals. And I'll see you in 2 days. Good night.